80% of evangelical churches report spending 0% of their ministry budget on marriage ministry. So this is really close. Over 80% spend zero on any kind of marriage ministry budget. 85% of all churches report spending zero. So 80% of evangelical churches and 85% of all churches spend zero of their ministry budget on marriage ministry.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Master Level Marriage Podcast, where we discuss all things marriage and where you can discover the tools that you need to have a strong and healthy relationship. Our host, author, and marriage coach, Dr. Ronnie Gaines, will unpack many facets of a marital relationship as he dives into the dynamics of a marriage. In each episode, you will learn what it takes to succeed in your relationship and win in your marriage. Whether you are in the planning stages or have been married for several years, our desire is to help you grow and enrich your life as a couple and become a success story. Subscribe or follow us and be notified of each episode. Please leave us a review and help us help other couples. For more information, visit www.masterlevelmarriage.com. Thanks for checking us out. Now here's your host, Dr. Ronnie Gaines.
Welcome to the Master Level Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Gaines, and I'm so glad that you're here with me on this podcast today. This Sunday is the end of our Thanksgiving week. Man, we always have such a great Thanksgiving. You know, kids come over and we have a lot of food, and I'm sure you do as well. A lot of leftovers, you know, refrigerator is full, leftovers, and I'm not a real leftover person, but we'll eat on it for a few days, but it's just so fun during Thanksgiving time. You know, we spend so long on these meals. My wife, she spends so many hours getting the meal ready, getting everything just right. She has everyone order their own food. They get their own particular kind of food, whatever they want, and she takes their order. And I'm gonna tell you that her hot rolls are out of this world. And she also, while she's making the hot rolls, she'll make these cinnamon rolls, and they're so good. They melt in your mouth, and there usually are no leftovers when it comes to the cinnamon rolls. But she cooks everything everybody wants. Everybody puts their order in, and it takes her hours to cook all this food. And I'm sure she enjoys it, but it's just really exhausting for her. I know that. But it is a time that we get to spend together with our kids and our grandkids, and we get to be thankful, you know, for them and what they mean to us. But we also are thankful for what the Lord does in our life. We are pastors, and we're so grateful that the Lord does many things, not just in our life, but in the lives of the people of our church. And we're so grateful. I pastor a church called Extreme Church in Oklahoma, and we have such a great congregation. We're so grateful for them. They're so gracious to us, and we're thankful for them. And so this is just a time of year, and I know you are too. I know there's many people in your life, and you spend time like everyone else preparing the food, getting it ready, and then all that time that's spent in preparing the food, and then all at once, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and we're done. We're done eating for the moment. And then we always come back for second and thirds. Oh, it's so fun. But, you know, the Christmas season is coming up on us. And as a married couple, you know, sometimes these holidays can be very stressful. It can be stressful on your relationship. So I encourage you to find time with each other and not let all these holidays become stressful on your relationship where it causes, you know, issues and problems. And I know that during especially the Christmas season, a lot of times we overspend and we find ourselves in a financial strain. And I just want to encourage you, you know, come on. Don't buy something you can't afford. Some of the things that we buy, they become more of a curse than a blessing. because we overspend. We spend money we don't have. We spend money that we charge it. Many people will take this time of the year to charge on credit cards and just max out their cards just so they could buy something and have a lot of presents under the tree. And it's not a good thing to do for your relationship, to be in that kind of stress. Don't do that this year. Don't be under this kind of stress and this anxiety in your relationship, just over buying a lot of stuff that usually, I say it like this, we buy it and then it ends up going to the dump. After a while, we throw it away, or it's disposable or whatever. It ends up in a trash can. And don't do that. Don't get yourself in a financial bind and let that be the thing that takes you over into 2024 stressed out. And it's just not worth it. Be careful with your money. Don't let that be a part that causes a lot of problems in your relationship. And many times it is. And couples and even individuals go over into the new year with a lot of stress and anxiety and depression because of the spending that took place. And now they have to worry about paying it back. And so all those things all those Amazon boxes coming in seem like a blessing, but in reality, they become a curse. So be careful with that this year and just spend time together. Enjoy your relationship together. Enjoy your time together and not spend a lot of money that you don't have. Now today, and I think I mentioned this last week, that I wanted to give you some statistics in this episode this week. These most churches that maybe you're a part of a church somewhere, and I see this as a pastor, and I talk to a lot of other pastors about this, and we talk about different things when it comes to couples, and I have a privilege of working with some churches with their staff and talking marriage and that sort of thing. And so since I've found this data that is overwhelming, it's amazing, this data that has been put together by the Barna Group, which is a group that gets a lot of data from research and gets a lot of statistics that they can put out for all kinds of things, a lot of church-oriented things. In this particular one, this data basically states this: it's the state of marriage and relationship ministry and what churches report. I think this stood out to me so much because being a pastor, we want to touch every part of a person's life, not just their salvation and not just their relationship with Jesus, but every part of their life. We are individuals who go through so many things. We're challenged with all kinds of personal things, financial things, and also marital things. And so as a pastor, I want to be pretty rounded, where we talk about and we work on helping individuals in every stage, every phase, every point in their life. And marriage is one of them. I believe that an unhealthy congregation in their marriage, you'll have an unhealthy congregation in so many other ways. It's same in our leaders, our pastors, that if we have, as a pastor, if I have an unhealthy marriage, I'm going to have an unhealthy church, and I'm going to have an unhealthy staff and relationship with my church and with my staff because of my relationship with my wife. It's important that when I get up and preach on a Sunday, that my relationship with my wife is good. It affects me in my preaching. It affects me in my teaching. So it's one thing to have a great relationship where it does not affect me in the ministry. And I think our churches, and I didn't really realize this as much until I read this report. And this is a newer report that just came out this year in 2023. And in this report, it really caused me to really start to think about what we do here in our church and how we need to put some things into the systems to be able to make sure we take care of couples throughout the year and throughout the church age, if you will, of our church and Extreme Church, and do the things necessary to take care of every aspect of the church. And, we talk about, we have series and we have preaching on salvation, on faith, the different, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. We have teachings and preaching on stress and anxiety and things like that. We teach our youth. We teach our kids. We have what we feel is rounded. And even on marriage and relationship, once a year we try to have a relationship series, whether we're talking about marriage, talking about children, or talking about just the family dynamics. We try to do this at least one time a year. And most pastors I talk to do the same thing. At least one time per year, they have a family series. But I'm wondering, from the statistics that I see from this research, that there's some places that we are not taking care of. We're not having a rounded marital relationship ministry. And I think that once you hear this, if you're a pastor or you're a leader of the church, take this to your pastor and let him hear these stats. I think this is it's an eye-opener for me. It's caused me as a pastor to do some things, do some more things with our marriage ministry than what I already do. And being a marriage coach, you would think that I would have everything in place in our church. And I found myself not doing enough. We did some things, but not enough. And once I read these stats, this data, I immediately launched a life group in the fall, this last fall, that had to do with marriage. And it was great. We put a limit on how many could join because we did some in the living rooms with small groups. We had 12 couples sign up for this. So we had close to 24 at almost every week in the living rooms, just full of people sitting around. We went over all kinds of marriage and relationship strategies, and it was really a phenomenal group. In fact, we're even looking at doing another life group in the spring, and some of these individuals, some of these couples are coming back for the second part because they loved it so much. They're coming back for the second part in the spring, and I had others that couldn't sign up in the fall that they were a little upset at me because they couldn't sign up, and so now they're going to try to sign up in the fall. Not only are we having the life group, I'm thinking year round, but we're also developing and putting together a retreat for our couples in the spring, which many of them have already started wanting to sign up for that to be a part. And you know what? Couples really are looking for help. They're looking for a way to connect with someone and other couples. And when they connect with other couples, here's what I found out. They realize that they're not alone in their relationship. Other couples are experiencing the same things. They're not alone. They're experiencing the same things as other couples. Every couple's dynamics may be a little bit different, but ultimately they're experiencing the same things. And I think that was encouraging to them to know that they're not out there alone dealing with some things that no other couples are dealing with, that we're all dealing with pretty much the same thing. But I want to talk to you just a few moments about the data that has come through this research, all about the state of marriage and relationship ministry in the churches. And so there's just I'm just going to read through these just like it is in the report, so it will help you get an idea of what this report states. Now, we're going to be talking about mainline churches, evangelical churches, and then all churches combined. So what they found in this report was that 53% of all churches report having an ongoing marriage ministry. Now that seems pretty good. Just over half of all churches report having an ongoing marriage ministry. But what we're going to find as we go through this data is sometimes we say we have an ongoing marriage ministry, but do we really have what the church needs or the ministry needs? So right now we see 53% in this data, 53%, just over half of all churches report having some kind of marriage ministry. 63% of evangelical churches report having an ongoing marriage ministry. 35% of mainline churches report having an ongoing marriage ministry. 39% of Catholic parishes report having an ongoing marriage ministry. But what do these mean? 63 evangelical, 35 mainline, 39 Catholic. What does this mean that they have an ongoing marriage ministry? Now we're going to kind of peel back what this means. So 71% of evangelical churches report not paying anyone to run a marriage ministry. Now I know from my experience that most pastors, when they get the opportunity and they have the budget to hire, normally, not all, but normally some of the evangelical churches will hire a youth pastor first. Although I understand the lead pastor's first, and they may have a secretary, but usually the first hire will be a youth pastor. We've got to take care of those youth. I had heard one coaching network one time state that the reason pastors hire the youth pastor first is because they don't want to have to do it. They don't want to have to do the youth ministry, so they hire a youth pastor. But here, 71% of evangelical churches report not paying anyone to do marriage ministry. That means that the pastor normally, it comes down to him to take care of this marriage ministry. So almost 3/4 of the churches, they don't pay anyone to do this. 85% of mainline churches report not paying anyone to run a marriage ministry. 24% of all churches report having some staff role devoted to marriage ministry, which is very low. Less than 1/4 of all churches have some kind of staff that would be put over a marriage ministry. 73% of all churches report having some staff role devoted to youth ministry. So we have less than 1/4 that are focused on the marriage ministry, but almost 3/4 report having some staff role over youth ministry. So what we've done here in this report, according to this report, over 3/4 of the churches have someone over youth, but only less than 1/4 have anyone designated for marriage. And here's what I want to just break into that and say, if we don't have a good marriage ministry, we're not going to have a good youth ministry. We need a good marriage ministry. We need to support our marriages in the church. Over the years, I've noticed in all of the churches that I've been a part of, we've taken care of somewhat the youth and the children, but I don't ever remember having a designated person that took care of the marriages in the church. 80% of evangelical churches report spending 0% of their ministry budget on marriage ministry. So this is really close. Over 80% spend 0 on any kind of marriage ministry budget. 85% of all churches report spending 0. So 80% of evangelical churches and 85% of all churches spend 0 of their ministry budget on marriage ministry. 94% of mainline churches report spending 0% of their ministry budget on marriage ministry. So we're getting close to 100% of mainline churches spend 0 on any kind of marriage ministry. 72% of all churches lack a substantive marriage ministry. So almost 3/4 of all churches, they lack any kind of marriage ministry. So let's break this down. What does that mean? What is involved in a marriage ministry? I'm gonna list 5 things that this data shows that would be a part of a marriage ministry. These are 5 things that they would say would constitute a ministry of marriage. One of them is to train and equip leaders to mentor married couples. Normally this falls to the pastor. Depends on the size of the church. I don't know what it's like being in a larger church, let's say a mega church of, maybe 500 to 1,000 or more. I don't know what that would be. I know that some of them have people designated, but for the most part, most don't. Train and equip leaders to mentor married couples. Usually it falls to the pastor. There's no one really trained to become mentors for married couples. A second way that a church might set up a marriage ministry would be to host a marriage retreat. This is one of the things that we are setting up to do next spring to be able to have. This is why it's hit me so hard. I'm like, okay, we're going to do a life group. We're going to start working on that. I'm still going to do the marriage and the family and the relationship series in 2024, but we're going to do some life groups where we can get some smaller groups of individuals and teach them some things about marriage, go into all kinds of approaches and strategies and things like that. But we are also going to host a marriage retreat where we can come together as couples, we can pray together, we can cry together, we can argue together, we can talk about things in marriage that all couples need to talk about. The third marriage type ministry would be to host a marriage workshop or seminar. We're going to be putting something to this effect in at a later time and maybe do some workshop in a seminar, but now we're doing just these small groups. The fourth thing would be host a date night. Now, we have done this in the past where I think our church did this last February, which I believe it needs to be done more. It needs to be done on a more consistent basis. But to host a date night where we had people that would watch their children and let them go out on a date and spend the night together without kids. There are some individuals who have children, some couples who have children that absolutely don't have anyone that can watch their kids. And so they take their kids everywhere they go. And so this gives them an opportunity. To host a date night would give them an opportunity where the church would have people that would watch their children while they went out and spent the night together on a date and did not have to pay for that. We did it for free so that those individuals wouldn't be strapped financially, but they could go spend some time together and maybe go out to eat and not be financially burdened. Well, the fifth thing that they call marriage ministry would be marriage support small group. And that's basically what we did this last semester. This last fall was a small group, a life group. So what you see here when it comes to things in the ministry that constitute a ministry for marriage is train and equip leaders to mentor couples, host a retreat, host a workshop or seminar, host a date night, or have some kind of small group. Now, let me give you the percentages. Out of all the churches, 72% report not having more than two of these below. Two of these five things. 72% report not having more than two. 54% of all churches report having 0 or 1 of these ministries. So over half of our churches have 0 to 1 of these. 72% do not have more than 2. So some have some life groups, some have some, maybe they train some leaders, maybe they host a date night. But I believe that the data shows that we're lacking in putting a lot of these in our churches to take care of the couples. And finally, we come to this end of the report stating this, that 94% report providing pastoral counseling for couples. They report providing pastoral counseling for couples. 94%. That's close to 100% say that they provide pastoral counseling for couples. And 58% of this, almost 100%, almost 60% of the 100 or the 94 feel either not very qualified or only somewhat qualified to provide pastoral guidance to couples considering divorce. So the data shows the data proves that maybe our churches need a little bit more help in developing some leaders, developing some staff, training some staff, putting in some more ministry events, ministry things for our married couples, instead of just a series once a year where maybe we do a 3 or 4 or 5-part series and some couples only come to 1 or 2. We live in a culture now where many will not come 5 weeks in a row. And so they miss at least half or 3/4 of your series. So what do? We have to implement more things in our churches to take care of our church members and their marriage. There's so much in the Bible, there's so much in the scriptures that talks about marriage. And I believe that we need to put some of these into our agendas. And I felt so compelled after reading this report to do a better job at taking care of our couples. The marriage is so important. It was a holy thing that God created. It was a holy relationship. And I believe that He wants us to treat it as such. It's important that we find a way to implement things in our churches that takes care of our couples and our marital aspects of our church members. I hope this has helped you in some way today. I know I've given you a lot to think about as far as numbers and the statistics that's out there in this report, but I'm so compelled by this report to make sure that at our church we take care of our couples. And I'm gonna start a process of continually doing this on a year-round basis, where the couples and the marriages are taken care of. The marriages, the couples are informed, the couples are taught, and we learn together the aspects of being married and having a healthy marriage. I hope you've enjoyed this today. I'm so grateful again for you in this time that we spend together. You can click on the link below and leave us a comment, leave a question. Let us know that you're interacting with us, and that would be so awesome to know that you're here and to hear your responses, your requests, your comments. It'd be great. And go down and share this in some way. If you found this helpful for you, if you know a church or you know a pastor that this would be helpful for, just send this to him, share it, link him or her in, and let them hear these stats and this data. And I believe it will help them tremendously. Again, I just want to say thank you for listening to each show, each episode. And I know that in the next few weeks, we're going to have many more episodes to come, a lot of content, a lot of information. We're coming up on our 25th episode. Can't wait to have our guest on during that episode. It's coming up, so stay with us. Keep listening to or watching each episode, and let us know you're there. Let us interact with us, and we will answer your questions. We'll have some kind of remark or some kind of answer or some kind of response to your comment. And so we're looking forward to interacting with you in the future. Stay tuned each week, download, and be ready for each episode. And we always like to leave you with this: be your best self, live out your full potential, and experience your best marriage. I will see you on the next show.